We are interviewing Miss Zamora of Severn School, and I'm, I'm gonna pass it off to Keyshawn to ask her the question of the day.
All right, so Miss Moore, so every episode, we like to get to know like our the person we're interviewing a little bit more personally, like outside of like the career aspect, and so we ask everybody a question of the day, right? And so the one we have today is, if you could have one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Mm. Does sushi count as a food?
Yeah, I think so.
That's a good
Right?
variety. That's a
Yeah.
good choice.
Sushi and just a good old spicy tuna roll. Just a good old spicy tuna roll will do me.
Okay,
That's a good choice.
that's gas. Matt, what is yours?
Well, it's fine.
Yeah.
There are two questions of the day?
No. He's just
Oh.
asking me. Honestly, that's hard to follow up with because sushi's such a good one.
Sushi is pretty good.
I think if I had to be original, I'd probably choose like cheeseburgers.
That's a good one too.
That's
You
what-
can just
That's
mix
solid.
and, mix and match a bunch of stuff on
That
it.
is true, yeah. Bunch of sides and stuff.
Yeah.
That is
Well,
pretty
the
good.
sides don't count. Just the cheese. You can.
Oh, okay, like toppings.
Yes, you can't put stuff on. That's not the same food.
My fault, OG.
Do you have one?
I think it's hard to beat a good steak. Like, if you get like a good one, like one good enough, I think it's like unmatchable.
Yeah,
Like
but
Grady's bag of meat.
I don't know that mystery meat. I don't know what that was.
No, it was sirloin, he said. I think he said. Or New York strip.
Grady's in the
Yeah.
That enigma is crazy.
the keynotes. Well,
I don't know what he eats after that, but like it's probably never mind. That's the story for another time.
let's get back on
That's a
track.
great
Back on track,
interview.
You want to lead it? Okay. Well, first off, what started your Latin journey?
My Latin journey. So, when I finished high school, and I took Spanish all through high school, when I went into university, I attended a good liberal arts university, which means that they had requirements for all aspects of education. So I had to do science, and I had to do math, and I had to do history, even though that wasn't necessarily the focus of my degree. At the time when I started university, I was pre-law.
Okay.
And part of the requirement for that liberal arts degree was that I take a language. And I was just sick and tired of Spanish. So I selected Latin because I thought pre-law, those two would go well together. And also, when you took Latin at that time, you didn't have to take a language lab, which meant it was going to save me about 5 hours a week. I wouldn't have to go, because it wasn't a spoken language, I wouldn't have to go into the language lab, put on the old headphones, put on the cans, as you kids call them. Yeah, that's DJ talk.
I don't think I've ever.
Get hip to it, kid. I wouldn't have to go to the language lab for 5 hours a week and do my spoken practice. So that's why I chose Latin. And having never studied Latin before, I really fell in love with it. It was unlike any language I'd ever experienced, and I was just kind of good at figuring out the language and translating it. So by the end of my sophomore year at university, I had switched from pre-law to classics, to Latin and Greek. And that's my Latin journey.
Did you like get into the history, or just into the language itself?
The
Or did
way that it was taught then at that level, there wasn't a lot of culture and there wasn't a lot of history. So mostly it was just the language. But once I became a classics major, that's when I had to take ancient history and Roman culture, history, Roman, Greek and Roman history and Greek and Roman culture classes. But when I first started out with the language, it was just mostly the language.
So were you like any good at Spanish, or was it like?
I was good. I did Spanish AP. I did Spanish AP.
Better than Matt.
But now, because I didn't really use it, obviously, I always say that I I could go to Spain or Mexico and I could order breakfast and ask where the train station is and do kind of basic. And when the Spanish teachers here have a little conversation in Spanish and I'm around, I can pick up some
You
of
can
it.
listen in.
Yeah, I can listen in and kind of get the idea of it. And then I sometimes watch Spanish soap operas on Univision, and I can kind of figure out, yeah,
What does that
they're
mean?
interesting. It's the channel that has Spanish.
Ah,
You
my
can
fault.
get with it. And I can kind of figure it out a little bit, but my Spanish is very, very limited.
Keyshawn?
So when you went to college, did you like enjoy where you went? Like, was it a good time?
So I went to Lawrence University, which is in Appleton, Wisconsin. And for the previous 17 years of my life, I'd either been in Arizona or California, Northern California. So the weather was very different, and the culture of the Midwest was very different, but I really enjoyed it. It's a small school, it had a small campus, and especially in the classics program, it was a really close-knit community because there were so few of us. So I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it, even though, like I said, the weather was pretty harsh and a big change from what I had experienced in Arizona and California. I had fun at university. I enjoyed it.
Glad to hear that. So you've just recently come to Severn, and last 2 years you've been teaching here. What brought you here? Like, what caught your eye about Severn?
So I had been teaching middle school for 4 years before I came to Severn, having taught upper school 6 years before that, and I wanted to go back to teaching at the upper school level.
Makes sense.
Middle school is hard. I've always said that, having done it, having experienced both, I always say that middle school teachers, you have to be some of the toughest teachers around. It's rough to teach middle schoolers. And I'm just not that strong. I needed to go back to the upper school. So that's why I came.
So you've been teaching for 12 years?
No, gosh, this is like my
How long
22nd
have you been
year.
teaching?
This is like my 22nd year of teaching. Yeah.
How did you get into teaching?
So, because I switched to classics so late at my undergrad university, by the time I was graduating, I'd really only had kind of 2 years of that major and 3 years of Latin and Greek and Roman history and culture and Greek history and culture. So I didn't want to stop with that. Also, God forbid, after university, go off and get a real job and have to be an adult. So I went to graduate school for classics because it allowed me to get a deeper understanding of the languages and the history and the culture. And it also helped me to avoid real life for another 2 to 4 years. So I went to graduate school, and while I was at graduate school, our department was very diverse. We had a Japanese student, we had Italian students, we had students from Hungary, and I realized then, with all of these students from different parts of the world, that I really hadn't traveled a lot. I'd been to Canada, I'd been to Mexico, but that was about it. And so I spoke about this with one of my professors about how everyone in our department was really well traveled and I just hadn't traveled at all. And he suggested that I take a year off from studies or just do my master's degree, take a year off and come back to do the PhD, but that I take time off or step away from the program and travel. And he said that a really good way to finance travel is to teach overseas and then use your vacation time to do travel. So you can pay for your travel, and then as a teacher, you have some really nice holidays in which to travel. And that's what I decided to do. So my plan was to take 1 year off for my PhD program, teach overseas, travel, and then come back to the PhD program and start again. I found a school in the UK, just outside of London, and I started teaching there. And in the same way that I kind of fallen in love with Latin at the start of my university career, I fell in love with teaching at the start of my teaching career. I really enjoyed teaching students the language. I really enjoyed teaching them the culture and history of the Romans and the Greeks. And after a year, when I was supposed to return to my PhD program and return to the United States, I just stayed in the UK and continued to teach and continued to travel as well. So, like I said, when I asked you how many people set out to be teachers, it's because I certainly did not start out to be a teacher, but kind of fell into the profession through certain circumstances. And I've just enjoyed it ever since.
In the UK, were those like high school students? Or like...
They were year 9 through A-level students. So year 9 are like 15 and 16-year-olds up through 18 and 19-year-olds. So it was upper school as well.
Yeah.
Although I did teach some middle school when I was teaching overseas.
Are American kids better than the British kids?
No.
What?
So let me tell you about it was culture. Even though obviously the British speak the same language as we do, it was nevertheless still a big shock. There was a lot of culture shock involved. My students wore what we think of as assembly dress was their everyday uniform.
That is
It was an all-girls Roman Catholic school. So they had tights, they had to wear tights, their plaid skirt, their shirt tucked in, and then their blazer all the time. And when I would come into the room, they would stand behind their chairs and wait to greet me. After they greeted me, then I would have to tell them to sit down. And they would have to ask permission to take their blazers off. So they go, Miss, can we take our blazers off, Miss? And I would have to give them permission. Yeah.
Truly backwards.
They were quiet. They were well behaved. Some of them would go off the rails from time to time, but
not as fun.
But being a Catholic school and being an all-girls school, there was a pretty strict regime. So behavior was never a problem.
So you had no Grady's over there. There were no Grady's.
No, there were Grady's. There are Grady's everywhere.
Oh.
There are Grady's everywhere. Right, talkative people, people that like to disrupt classes, people that need to take a walk every once in a while to work off some nervous energy. But they were, from what I had experienced from my own middle school and high school, it was very different over there. And it was interesting because that was the first, right? That was my first teaching job. So it was very different from what I had experienced and then from what I would experience later on teaching in the U.S. Food was great. I don't know why people always make fun of British food. Fish and chips.
Beans on toast?
I don't like beans, so I've never had beans on toast.
Garbanzo beans?
Chips, no, not garbanzo beans, baked beans. Fish and chips bangers and mash. Bangers and mash is just sausages and mashed potatoes. Who doesn't like sausages and mashed potatoes? They're called bangers because when they were made after World War II, they were made with a lot of cheap meat. And I guess when you cook them, they would pop. Yeah. So bangers and mash, fish and chips, lovely little bakeries, like really good bakeries in the UK. Cream slices, tarts. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you meet Gordon Ramsay?
I didn't meet Gordon Ramsay, but I was actually talking with the threes the other day. I am 3 handshakes away from Hitler.
Wait.
Yeah.
What?
I know, right? I am 3 handshakes away from Hitler. I was thinking about it the other day because apparently there's this thing, I don't know, except from what friends have told me, about people on the social media talking about how many handshakes they are away from certain people in history, one of them being Hitler. But I'm 3 handshakes away from Hitler because my department head, my department head was married to the dean of St. Albans Cathedral. St. Alban is the city in which I taught. And St. Albans Cathedral underwent renovations, some pretty serious renovations. And when it was reopened, Queen Elizabeth II came to reopen it. And my head of department said, would you like to come along for the reopening? You could maybe meet the Queen. I was like, yeah, I'll come along. Absolutely. That's fun. That's exciting. And sure enough, after the dean and his wife were introduced to Queen Elizabeth, my head of department, the dean's wife, Rona, said, would you like to meet my colleague? And the Queen just went, yes, of course. Because that's what she was there to do, just meet people and shake their hands. So she was introduced to me. I was introduced to her. We shook hands. She asked me about teaching, and that was it. And of course, her uncle, King Edward, met Hitler.
So if I were to shake your hand.
Yeah, I
You're 4 shakes away from Hitler. Isn't that strange?
That's crazy. What?
That is. It's crazy. But
I think we need to test this out.
I feel like you probably are already maybe 6 handshakes away from.
Probably, maybe.
Well, no, because
it's not that crazy to be like, I guess to.
Right. Mr. Otero has met Barack Obama. Barack Obama met the Queen.
Right? I need to shake Mr. Otero's hand.
And then you're right in, and you're past to Hitler. Yay.
So I probably already am 4 away.
Yeah, you're not that far away.
I'm 3 away.
Right?
4 is pretty good stuff.
I'm like 2 handshakes away from Allen Iverson.
That's what Alyssa Johnson was saying. She's like, I'm a handshake away from a lot of basketball players. Yeah. So it's interesting how that works, but you're closer to Hitler than you think. There's that lesson. Oh dear. You can edit that part out.
Like, this is a crazy tangent, but like, I'm so glad I heard this.
Yeah.
Okay, getting back on topic, on track. You've been teaching for a little bit, right? So
Yes, for a long time.
what would you say is the most rewarding part about teaching?
When students get it, even if it's just a little victory, they're not necessarily going to be perfect translators, but if they can just get through one sentence really well, or just the small little victories of tackling a really, as you guys both know, a hard language. Latin is not easy, so that when you have a student learn, when you have a student, right, increase their translation abilities, that's rewarding.
Okay, so what would you say is your favorite Latin project you've ever done?
What do you mean by project?
Project activity, like
That she's like given to her.
like ever.
I would say that video that your group
Oh my
did,
gosh.
right? I'm not. It's not my favorite one. It's pretty straightforward. I gave you the task of making a video. I hope that my frees know that they can leave.
They're fine.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
It was I've had more complicated and interesting projects, but honestly, the one that you did, like the resulting product, the end result was incredible. It's like a 15-minute
That was actually a really good
film.
movie.
It was.
Is that this year?
It was this year, yeah, just a few weeks ago. So I would say,
Yeah, Timmy sent it to me.
even though that's kind of a bit of recency bias, I really was pleased with how that all turned out.
You know, that it makes sense. That was a really good video.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if I have anything to ask.
Oh, okay. Is Latin the greatest language to ever exist? Would you say?
No.
Oh.
No. I think that has to be Indo-European, which is kind of the mother language of so many other languages. So it's the mother language of Hindu and Greek and Russian and Latin and also German, which then is of course English. So I mean, I don't know how you define greatest, but
Yeah.
Indo-European is the language that gave birth to so many other languages. The languages throughout Asia and Russia, not Japanese and Chinese, but most of the languages that we could associate with European nations, those came from Indo-European. So I would say that that makes it the greatest,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Do you have any advice you could maybe give to other teachers who maybe want to teach?
It's really, really tough, right? I mean, there's a reason why a lot of young teachers leave. There is a reason why a lot of young teachers leave. And that was the case before the pandemic, and it's certainly the case. It certainly was the case during the pandemic and afterwards. But it's just because it's tough. But I will say that it gets easier. It does get easier. You get a little bit better at it every year. It's one of those professions where you never stop learning and you never lack opportunity for improvement. I think probably in about 15, 20 years, I might get good at this. There's always a chance for me to improve. There's always a chance for me to get a little bit better. And I found that that's the case every year.
Wise.
Mm.
That is very wise.
Yeah.
I think
So you just have to stick it out. Like the first 5 years of teaching are miserable. Miserable. It's pretty low pay. It's pretty low pay, even if you have a master's degree, but it's just because you don't have a lot of experience. It's pretty low pay, long hours, because very often you're making things new because you've never taught before, or you've never taught a particular subject before, so that you're making worksheets new, you're making tests new. But like I said, after that, those first 5 years, it gets a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable, and you feel a little bit more confident in yourself as a teacher, which is not necessarily the case in those first 5 years. So you just have to stick with it. It'll get better.
I have one final question. Hypothetically speaking, you win the lottery. What is the first thing you're doing?
Well, I always say this, right? I've probably heard this in class. I'm leaving my desk. If I'm here at school, I'm leaving my desk, and you will hear my tires screeching as I Tokyo drift out of the parking lot. If I win the lottery, I'm visiting Italy a lot. Depending on how much, there's definitely a Greek island that I could purchase, I would think, and spend some time there. Yeah, traveling, not working. I don't know those people that say, I might do what Mr. Nichols does. I wouldn't mind being a substitute and coming in every once in a while. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Putting in an appearance every once in a while. But I would probably not continue working. I'm never sure of those people that always say after they've won $70 million, oh yeah, I'm going to come back to work on Monday. Okay,
Unless you're like
you do you.
scientific ground.
I will not be coming back to work. I might want to, stop in every once in a while and see people, but most of the time I'll be in Italy or on my Greek island.
Another wise answer.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's all we have, right?
That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote. Okay.
Well, I do want numbers at the end about how many people actually plan to become teachers.
Okay.
I'm interested.
I think we got no priority then. Right?
First, Verity wanted to be a vet.
Yeah.
We're entering sense back.
Something like that. He didn't plan on.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's a profession that a lot of people fall into in one way or another. And usually the reason why they stay in it is because they love it, but it wasn't what they set out to do originally. So it'll be interesting to hear that information from you.
Okay.
Thank you, for coming on, sharing your wisdom with us. Me and Matt really appreciate that.
Yes.
It was my pleasure. Bye.
Goodbye.
Walete.
Oh.